Every single day in all sorts of places, clinics, hospitals, even your local tattoo parlor, there's this hidden system working behind the scenes. Its whole job to protect us from some pretty hazardous stuff. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the world of healthcare waste management. And our guide for this journey is the East African Standard, a set of rules designed to keep all of us safe. Let's dive in and see how this whole thing actually works. So, here's our game plan. We're going to look at what this waste is, how a simple color code acts as a first line of defense, the journey it takes inside a facility, how it's actually made safe, and then finally, why having one big, unified standard is so important. But let's start with a question. You've just had a blood test. You see the nurse get rid of the needle. So, what happens next? All right, first things first, let's define what we're even talking about. Because as you're about to see, this kind of waste comes from a lot more places than you might think. Yeah, think about that needle or a used bandage. It doesn't just vanish into thin air, right? It actually kicks off a carefully controlled journey, a process that begins the exact moment it's thrown away. And this journey is absolutely crucial for stopping the spread of infection and protecting our environment. Okay, so according to the official standard, this is the definition. And wow, it is incredibly broad. It covers everything from infectious materials and sharp objects to old medicines and lab chemicals. Basically, it's a category defined by its potential to do some serious harm if it's not handled perfectly. And where does it all come from? Well, the sources are just as diverse. You've got the obvious places, sure, hospitals and labs, but we're also talking about your dentist's office, the vet, blood banks, and yep, even saloons and tattoo parlors. Any place that creates waste while treating people or animals, it's all part of this system. So you've got all these different kinds of waste coming from all these different places. How in the world do you manage it all safely? Well, the very first and maybe the most critical step is separating it right at the source. And that all starts with a simple but totally non-negotiable system of color. Okay, take a look at this. This is the heart of the system right here. And what's so cool is how it just visually organizes the risk. Now, this isn't some friendly suggestion. It's a strict requirement. Red is for the highly infectious stuff. Yellow is for other infectious materials and sharps. Black or blue is for your general non-hazardous trash. And there are even special colors for really specific things like chemical waste or materials from chemotherapy that can literally damage DNA. Let's zero in on red for a second. This is for the most hazardous material. We're talking pathological waste, blood bags, or anything that comes out of an isolation ward. When you see that red bin, you know its contents require the absolute highest level of caution, no exceptions. Now, the yellow bin. This is for stuff that's infectious, but maybe a step down from the red category. This is where you'll find things like used gloves, dressings, and really importantly, those sealed sharps containers holding used needles and blades. That biohazard symbol is definitely there for a reason. And finally, the good old black bin. This is just for general waste, things that pose no infectious, chemical, or physical risk. So think paper towels, packaging, food scraps. And separating this out is key because it makes sure that perfectly harmless stuff doesn't get treated like it's hazardous, which, saves a ton of time, money, and resources. Okay, so the waste is sorted into the right bins. Awesome. But it can't just hang out there forever. Let's follow it to the next stage, the carefully managed journey it takes within the facility itself. This little on-site trip follows 4 very precise steps. It starts with immediate separation. Then it's collected in special trolleys, moved along dedicated paths, not just any hallway, and finally it ends up in a secure storage area. See? This isn't just a random cleanup. Every single step is planned out to minimize any risk of contamination. And this storage bay isn't just some back closet. It's basically a purpose-built fortress for hazardous stuff. The standard demands an impervious floor, lockable doors, great ventilation, and a proper drainage system. And here's the kicker. Waste can only be held here for 48 hours, max, before it has to be treated or taken away. So the waste has been sorted, collected, and stored. But it's still dangerous. This next step is the most critical part, treatment. This is where the waste is actually neutralized and made safe before it's disposed of for good. The standard lays out 2 main ways to do this. On one hand, you have autoclaving. Think of it like a giant high-pressure steam cooker that just sterilizes the waste, killing any pathogens. On the other hand, there's incineration, which uses crazy high temperatures to burn the waste down into a tiny bit of sterile ash. Both work really well, but both are also subject to super strict rules to protect the environment. And these images really drive home why all this technology is so important. I mean, we are dealing with materials that carry some serious risks, from radioactivity to biohazards. This entire system, from the colored bins all the way to these high-tech treatment plants, is designed to contain those threats and keep the public safe. So far, we've seen how this all works inside one hospital or clinic. But to make this system truly effective, you need everyone to be on the same page. And that's where a regional standard becomes so powerful. This whole process we've been talking about, it's all laid out in a standard developed by the East African community. This isn't just one country's set of rules. It's a unified approach. It makes sure that whether you're in one partner country or another, the safety level and the procedures are always consistent and reliable. And beyond just public health, there's another big goal here. As this quote from the standards introduction explains, when everyone plays by the same rulebook, everything just gets more efficient. It breaks down barriers and makes it easier to share services and technologies for waste management across the whole region. So it's about safety, sure, but it's also about synergy. So there you have it. We started with a single needle, right? And we ended up with a massive regional agreement. It just goes to show you, the journey of healthcare waste is this incredibly complex, mostly invisible, but absolutely vital system. It's just quietly chugging along in the background, keeping all of us safe every single day. So maybe, just maybe, it's a system that deserves a closer look, don't you think?